Life beginning to get back to what the people of Munich have come to expect from this very cosmopolitan and engaged city. Well, let's talk a little bit more now about those events of last night and talk to Afshin Shahi, a lecturer in international relations and peace studies at the University of Bradford. He joins me live now from our studio in Salford. Many thanks for joining us here on the programme.
Thanks for having me.
In the last hour or so, we have heard from the Munich police and the chief prosecutor telling us that this 18-year-old German-Iranian student who'd been living in the city for around 2 years, we think, was acting alone, no link to any terrorist or militant organisation.
Yes, and this is exactly the opposite of what a lot of us thought yesterday when we just heard about the incident. When you do look at the context, when you look at what has been happening in Europe over the last few months, it is not surprising that a lot of us jumped to the conclusion that probably this was conducted by the Islamic State. Over the last 9 days, there were 3 major atrocities, 3 major attacks against civilians in Europe. 2 of them were directly connected to the Islamic State. So when that incident happened, that tragic incident happened yesterday in Munich, a lot of us automatically assumed that yet again the Islamic State managed to conduct another atrocious kind of operation in the continent. Without any doubt, the climate of fear is prevailing, and in the climate of fear, a lot of us seems to look for simple answers for extremely difficult questions. I suppose what happened today and what became very clear in the press conference this morning should remind us that indiscriminate violence, indiscriminate killing is not only in the monopoly of organized terrorism. We live in an environment that we get actually extremely exposed to violence every single day, every single hour, day after day, week after week. We are bombarded with violent narratives, violent headlines. And again, there are enough research to suggest that violence is contagious. Violence is contagious, and the more you are exposed to it, the more likely it is that you catch it.
Well, on that violence is contagious. As you say, this is the 3rd such attack that we've seen in Western Europe in the past 8 days. We've seen lots of images all over the internet, of course, social media. That was thrown into something of a frenzy last night as well. Questions raised in that press conference that we were both listening to by the Munich police and the prosecutor, journalists asking about the motivation, a suggestion that the perpetrator may have been suffering from some sort of mental illness, some sort of depression, and of course this very interesting line that when they searched his apartment, they found these articles pertaining to frenzied attacks with headlines such as "Why do teens kill?" What can we take away from that?
Yes, I mean, very much I go back to the point that I made early on. I think of course, the situation is not 100% clear. Probably within the next few days, or perhaps within the next few weeks, we're going to have a better idea about exactly what happened yesterday in Munich. But from what we can say right now, and from what we could actually get out of the press conference, it seemed that actually this young man who was born and bred in Munich, with an Iranian background, he was suffering from some type of mental illness, and he was extremely vulnerable to, I suppose, some form of radicalization. Radicalization not necessarily in the ideological or religious sense of the term, but in its violent sense of the term. And again, if you do compare what happened yesterday in Munich with so many other mass shootings that we have witnessed over the last few years in America, in the United States, you see that actually they have a lot in common. Young, vulnerable men kind of get marginalized, get alienated, and unfortunately, for some tragic reason, they manage to access lethal weapons, and they use those weapons to destroy lives and affect the society for years, if not generations to come.
As you say, this worrying narrative of violence that we're going to be talking about for many days to come, I fear. Afshin Shahi, good to talk to you, lecturer there in international relations and peace studies at the University of Bradford. Well, let's talk live now